Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another deck profile video today. I would have liked to bring you guys the data from the core event, but unfortunately I'm gonna have to wait till tomorrow to get that to you guys. Hopefully I can get the information today while you guys are watching this video. But anyways, in the meantime, I've talked about bringing you guys a starter Vegeta deck profile. I talked about on the Patreon how I'm still trying to experiment with aggro in this format, trying to figure out how it's still good even though it got nuked on the ban list. So I do have a profile for you today that a teammate of mine actually played a pretty similar list in the core event itself. So we'll go over my version of the deck. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss a video. And if you guys want to help support the channel, there are many ways to do so down in the description. But today, guys, if you want to buy any cards you see in today's video or buy any trading card game cards for that matter, use my link in the description to TCG Player. It does help the channel out greatly. With that said, we will get into the video. And we are playing starter Vegeta. So I think before the emergency ban list, King Vegeta was pretty clear cut the best red leader in the game. I think that might actually fall over to starter Vegeta now. This leader is just a value town powerhouse. So real quick, on the unawakened side, when this card attacks, draw 1, then it gets 5,000 power for the turn. So you can awaken release at 4 or less, or you have a 2 cost unison in play. You untap 2 energy, which untap 2 is actually a really rare awaken nowadays, and it's actually super powerful, especially in this build. Then you can add cards from light to hand until you have 5 left. And we don't really play a Kaba Unison, so the rest of the effect doesn't really matter. The Kaba Unison is just not good enough compared to the other 2 cost Unisons, at least when you're looking at this deck in a competitive aspect. So even though the leader can give Kaba extra markers when it awakens, it's just not worth it with the other Unisons we can play in the deck. So the awakened side, Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta, Spirit Boost Elite, auto wins card attacks, draw 1, then choose one of your red Unison cards with a specified cost of 2 and no keyword skills, and it gains double strike for the turn. So basically with that, this lends really well to being a hyper aggressive leader. Both the untap 2, which lets us extend our plays, and giving the Unison double strike just adds more damage. Auto once per turn, Spirit Boost 1. When your opponent attacks your red Unison card with a specified cost of 2, negate the attack, then choose with one of your red Unison cards and gets plus 6,000 power for the turn. So it is really important to awaken the turn you play your Unison, and from that point on, your Unison really can't leave the board unless they have like effects that remove markers, which is relatively rare. So your Unison is generally always safe, and I will say this deck's incredibly consistent. The Unison comes down in turn 2 pretty much every time, and that's because of these cards here. So we are playing 6 Unisons. We're playing, of course, 4 Piccolo Jr. Sent into the King. This is just the most broken 2-drop red Unison we can play. And the fact that this is an aggro deck that has a Unison like this that draws an additional card once per turn, if you're not able to win on turn 3, which is the idealistic goal win turn of this deck, you can still play a long dragged out game because of this card getting you that additional advantage. It's just absolutely insane. For our 2 backup Unisons, we're playing Mass Saiyan Avenger from another dimension. It's another 2 cost 15k Unison. It's not as good as Piccolo Jr. obviously, but it still does have a +1 that lets us draw a card. And in this deck, the +1 to actually dump a red Saiyan can be relevant, so that's not bad. The -2 is also okay. Like sometimes you're actually gonna want to, like if you had to start your game with turn 2 Mass Saiyan Unison, you're gonna sometimes actually want to switch that off into your Piccolo Jr. depending on the situation. Like if your opponent's playing a counter heavy deck and you really want to be activating Piccolo Jr.'s auto, for example. So what you can do is use the -2 of Mass Saiyan, -2, draw a card, choose all of your red Saiyan cards, energy cost 3 or less. They get plus 5,000 power for the turn, so that can boost your leader as well as your different battle cards, and then you can just switch off into Piccolo Jr. So that's a pretty good thing, and off that -2 you're still getting a draw, which is pretty insane. But anyways, we do play 4 copies of Chain Attack Fascia. This searches any Bardock's crew in our deck as well as our 6 Unisons. So between this card and playing 6 Unisons, we pretty much always have Unison on turn 2, which makes this deck incredibly consistent, which I love. And we are playing 4 copies of Yamcha Merciless Barrage. Even if it's not like amazing in this format like it was when, say, Mecha Frieza was using Universe 9 Assemble, this card was like super good against that. Even though it's not like that good right now, it's still a free 15k attacker in an aggro deck that you can use to stifle your opponent's aggression. So it's a good card worth running at 4 nonetheless. Then for our main Bardock's crew engine, besides the Fascia, we are playing 4 copies of Bardock, Private Low-Class Warrior. So basically the curve will work out like this. Turn 1, ideally you'll play Fascia. If you have a Unison already, you can play like a Borgos just to get a draw. And then on turn 2, you're going to play your Unison, flip over, take life down to 5. You're going to have 2 energy open again. Then you can play Bardock, Private Low-Class Warrior, attack, take that life. So now you're at 4. Now your super combos are online. And then if your opponent takes that damage, you get to restand this guy, look at the top 7 cards of your deck, and play a Bardock's crew crew. Neither of those cards can attack for that turn, but that's okay. You're just building a board full of advantage at that point. And depending on what deck my opponent's playing, especially if they're playing something a bit more defensive, I will use a super combo on this guy's attack just to make sure that the damage does go through so I can get that advantage. But even if it doesn't go through, it's actually not the worst thing. So what you're going to look to do from that is you're going to evolve him into Super Saiyan Enlightenment. And if you don't think you can get the damage through, you can just evolve into Saiyan Enlightenment without attacking if you're afraid that Bardock won't restand. Because even though Private Low Class Warrior says he can't attack when that effect resolves, if you evolve him into Saiyan Enlightenment, he then can attack because it's a new card. So when you play this guy like a top 7, you get to dump any 1-drop red Bardock screw among them to your drop. And then when it attacks, you play up to 1 Bardock screw, the energy cost of 1 from your drop. Then choose 2 red sand cards other than this card, and they get plus 5,000 power for the turn. And again, that can target your leader to boost, which is just really, really nice. So ideally, you want to get this guy down on turn 2. So between Private Low Class Warrior and Super Saiyan Enlightenment, there's your 2 energy after Awakening. And if you don't happen to hit Private Low Class Warrior, you can play Chain Attack Bardock just to evolve into Saiyan Enlightenment. That is also fine. But typically, off of Saiyan Enlightenment, you're going to want to be dumping your Chain Attack Bardocks or your Chain Attack Borgoses. And then when you attack with Saiyan Enlightenment, you're going to want to revive one or the other. Chain Attack Bardock offers you crit as well as some board removal as long as you have enough red sands in your battle area, which is good. And then Chain Attack Borgos, you play him, you draw a card, and then if you have the bond online, he is a 15k attacker. So what I was saying before about it's not all that important if you actually resolve Private Low Class Warrior, that's because on turn 1 you have Fasha or Borgos, turn 2 evolve Bardock into Bardock. Then you should be able to attack with Bardock, resolve his effect to play a 3rd Saiyan, which is going to activate your bond, which is kind of a workaround if you can't get Private Low Class Warrior's effect to resolve. But again, this engine is so consistent, and it offers a lot of nice board spam, a lot of nice power. And what I'll do is actually, I wanted to mention this too. If I'm playing against a deck like red that has Topo, or green that has Majin Buu Unadulterated Malice, and I know that on my first attack of that turn I'm gonna get floodgated and I'm not gonna be able to attack the rest of the turn. If I have Saiyan Enlightenment online, I'll actually attack with this guy first instead of my leader if I have Chain Attack Borgos in the drop area, and here's why. So you would think normally against a floodgate like that, you want to attack with your leader just to get the draw, and if you have to pass your turn, you have to pass your turn, that's fine. But with Saiyan Enlightenment, you attack, you get to play a guy from your drop area, so that's still giving you that card value that your leader would have gotten you. And on top of that, if it's a Borgos or even a Fasha, that play will then get you another new card. So it's actually getting you more value than your leader attack, which is something you really want to consider. So that's something I wanted to mention there, a good little workaround for still gaining massive amounts of value against floodgate decks. And even then, like I said, with Piccolo Jr. and your other unison that draws cards, you're going to be able to play those elongated games if your opponent's playing something hyper defensive, if you know how to kind of maneuver it. Then for the rest of our power cards, we're playing 4 copies of Raditz Saiyan Youth, just our super combo. You can get to 4 life relatively easily in this deck. Then we have 3 copies of Goku Divine Presence. So I do want to shout out my teammate Frank for this one. I didn't even think to include this card, but it is a really, really good turn 3 play that can help ensure the game. So basically, when you have to have 3 or more energy to even play this card, but if you have 2 or more red battle cards in your combo area, you can essentially arrive him for 2 reds, play this card, then choose one of your mono red cards, gets plus 5,000 power for the turn. Again, could be your leader, could be a unison, could be himself. And then when he attacks, we're not playing any skillless battle cards, so that doesn't matter, but he does gain 5,000 power for the turn, and he can't be removed from your battle area during your turn. So Frieza Charismatic Villain doesn't work on him, which is really, really nice. Plus he has deflect as well. So besides that, he can be a 30k attacker all on his own just for 2 energy, and of course we're going to back that up by SS4 Bardock fighting against Fate, another 25k dual attacker. So this helps us push really hard on turn 3 for game, especially with the board we established the turn before that. Then for some of our power cards, we are playing 2 copies of Further Instruction Champa. Beautiful thing about a red deck is if Champa just is clogging your hand, because we do play a fair-ish amount of 10k combos, so if Champa is ever kind of just clogging your hand, you can charge it. The 1 King Piccolo New Ruler that we're allowed to play because it's limited to 1 now. We are playing 1 Frieza Death Ball. I would kind of like to play 2, but again, a decent amount of 10k combos in the deck, and you probably can only really resolve 1 on a turn that you're trying to go in because you're going to be spending energy on other things. And I am playing Supreme Kai of Time, Space Time Unraveler as the secret rare. Now, I think this could be this, or this could be Heroine's Lineage. Both are fine. Like Heroine's Lineage to snag a blocker and get out of the way and go for game. That's definitely not bad. This is the one red deck that I would not recommend Gohank's SCR. only because your leader's effects all rely on having a 2-cost unison. So I wouldn't really want you to replace your 2-cost unison with a 4-cost unison, because your leader's effects would pretty much be dead at that point. So this is the one red deck. I would not recommend that, but Kai or Harman's Lineage for the more budget aspect does work nicely. And then wrapping up just for some tech options. What's nice about the deck, again, it's very consistent, and the engine's actually rather small, so you have a lot of option for tech, a lot of room for tech, I should say. So 2, testing the opposition. Again, we awaken go to 5, so just using this to get to 4 is nice, and I think the 2-for-1 attack stopping value is just better than a card like Wolfang Fist, so that's my opinion on that. 1 copy of Omen of Awakening paired with 2 Broly Crown of Retribution. So both of these can basically be used to prevent floodgates from impacting you. Broly Crown has a little bit more flexibility because you can look at their hand. If they don't have a floodgate, you can rip like a super combo, for example. But Omen of Awakening, if they want to use the Topo, if they want to use the Boo Unadulterated Malice, Omen Awakening can just stop that. I would definitely side deck more copies of this. Probably also side deck a 3rd copy of Broly Crown, and then remaining 1 copy of Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken Goku Concentrated Destruction. Again, would probably side deck another one, but this is great for those pesky blue-yellow decks that are ultra defensive. Just get rid of their Bojack, as well as some other random removal you might need if you have to play an elongated game. But anyways, guys, there is the profile for starter Vegeta. I really like this deck as like an aggro deck that can even play a bit of a longer game. But of course, I want to know what you guys think in the comments below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.